Hello, everyone. Welcome to our call today. I'm Marie Hampton. I live in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I'm originally from New Zealand. And we're very excited to have a very special gentleman on the call today, Greg Dieker from Colorado. And Greg, I met Greg a good few years ago, and that's one of the beautiful things about this business. You make great friends who are there to help you along your journey. And Greg has just been instrumental for me with New Zealand. And if I have a question, I text him and he always answers back. And I'm just forever grateful. He's so respected in LifeVantage. And like most of us, we didn't find LifeVantage. LifeVantage found us. And it's just been an absolute gift. Greg has built a vast global distribution network. And Greg, we're just so thankful you're here. Thank you. The half an hour is yours.
Oh, great. Thank you. My apologies for being late again. I'm terrible about that. Every now and then I get wound up in something and I completely forget my schedule. So first of all, Marie, thank you for having me on. Thank you for the kind words. You're right. The best part about LifeVantage is the people, and it's all the people we meet over time from all corners of the world. And that's one of the things I just love about us is our culture. It's to me probably the most important and best thing about our entire business. But my story is not unlike a whole lot of other people's stories. I came to this quite by accident. I was at my chiropractor's office one day, and as I walked out the door after he gave me an adjustment, he said, "Greg, what are you doing tonight?" And I said, "Nothing. Why?" And he said, "Why don't you come back to my office? It's 6:30 tonight. I got something I want to share with you." And that's all he said, nothing else. And I had a lot of confidence and integrity in this guy, so I came back and I showed up and I heard the LifeVantage story. And after hearing the LifeVantage story, I knew absolutely this was something I had to do. I was in a terrible financial situation at the time. I had lost my home in a short sale. I'd lost my savings. I'd lost my 401k. I had gone unemployed through no fault of my own for about 2 years across a 2.5 year period. I was barely employed at the time that my chiropractor invited me to look at this business. I had just joined our local sheriff's office, and I really, really needed a lifeboat, and LifeVantage turned out to be my lifeboat. There was no question about it. As I walked out of his office that night after the business presentation, I recognized that this was where I wanted to be. This is where I had to be, and this was my opportunity. But quite honestly, I was dead broke. I couldn't rub two 20s together, much less 10 Benjamins. And so how I was going to get in the business, I had to be creative. At the time, quite honestly, my wife and I were making ends meet by selling trees off of our small ranch. We have about 3,000 ponderosa pine trees on our ranch, and I was selling about 10 or so of them a month for a couple $100 a piece, and that's how we made ends meet. And I needed to come up with $1,000 and $1,000 fast. I had one particular tree that the tree guy offered me $1,000 for, and my wife told me I couldn't sell it. She kind of liked it because it was in the front yard of our house. And so but that night I picked up the phone before I called my wife. I picked up the phone and called Steve, the tree guy, and said, "Hey, Steve, do you want that tree?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Great, be at my house tomorrow. Bring your tree spade and a check for $1,000. It's yours." And then I had to go home and explain to the wife what I'd done. And as you can imagine, it didn't go particularly well. But my wife had a lot of belief in me and said, "If this is what you think's the right thing to do," she goes, "Let's go do it." And this is coming from a woman that's well aware of the fact that I'd tried network marketing 7 times before. And I guess you could call me a 7-time failure if you wanted to, because I never made enough money at any one of those companies to even cover my expenses, much less hit it out of the park like we've been able to do here. So I just feel like I'm in the right place at the right time with the right company, with the right product, right leadership. Everything that there is about this company is good. 10 months in, I was able to earn my first 5-figure check. 13 months in, I was an elite distributor, and 18 months in, I was retiring from my job as a deputy sheriff. And I'll tell you what, I just, I'm so blessed and fortunate to be here and have the opportunity to do that. I can't tell you how blessed that I am. So, hi, Liz, how are you? And so I just thrilled that LifeVantage came into my life and made all the difference that it's made for me. So throughout this process of being here, one of the things that I was able to do, according to Dr. McCord, is I'm the first person who ever fed Protandim to a horse. I started over 11 and a half years ago. We had a conversation at Elite Academy 2, and he and I and David Brown, the at that time CEO, because David had asked me about whether or not I was feeding it to my horse, and I told him no, I hadn't even thought about it. And he said, hey, let's go sit down with Joe and talk about it. And so we did. And Joe was quite frank about the fact that he said a horse is a mammal like a human is a mammal. And he said a Protandim should do the exact same thing in a horse that it does in humans. Well, I already knew that it did amazing things in humans. There was no question about that. So I felt quite comfortable feeding it to my horses, and I went home and started feeding it to them immediately. And that was February of 2010. And I haven't stopped feeding it to my horses every day since. So I've got 5 horses out in the barn right now, about 100 yards away from where I'm sitting. And all 5 of those horses get 2 Protandim every single day. Probably the best story I could tell you about any of my horses is I have a 37-year-old gelding over there in the barn right now that has been used hard all his life since he was broke to ride by the time he was 2. He was competitive by the time he was 4. He's a rodeo rope horse, probably roped 20,000 steers in his life, dragged a ton of them to the fire, climbed a lot of mountains. He's a beast. And at 37 years old, he's still going strong, and he looks great. It feels great. And I, my vet says, hey, blood work wise, couldn't be better blood work on a horse his age than mine has. And we see him having several more good years unless something catastrophic happens to him. But the bottom line is that the Nerf 2 formula that is in Protandim and is also in Pet Tandem for dogs is probably the best formula that we could be feeding anyone anywhere or any animal anywhere if we want them to have long, healthy, and happy lives. I have 2 6-month-old mini Australian puppies running around the house. If they come in the office while I'm here, I'll introduce you to Tink and Meatloaf. But they're just turning 6 months old, and they're starting on Pet Tandem. I've decided to start them on half a pill of Pet Tandem a day and continue carrying them forward. And I see those dogs having probably the healthiest life they could probably ever want to have from that perspective. So very excited about it. There's a ton of information I could share. I don't know what you want to hear, or animals as a whole. Marie, give me some guidance, or we can play Q&A. I'm happy to work this out however you want to do it. You let me know.
So, Greg, okay, thank you for that. And it's just really awesome that you were the first one to talk to Dr. McCord about this. Oh my God, look at the thousands and thousands of animals that have helped because of that one conversation. I mean, absolutely love that. So, what do you do when you share with someone new? How do you, what's the first thing you do? Say to them?
As a general rule, or share about animals?
Yeah, for animals.
Well, usually anyone I'm going to share the animal side of the story with, I've already shared the human side of the story. And so I try to connect the two as best I can. I've had multiple conversations with human doctors as well as veterinarians, and they all agree that a mammal is a mammal is a mammal. And they all agree that the Nerf 2 formula within Protandim, there's no reason why it should not work the same way in animals, any mammal, that it does in humans. And it's kind of nice to know that they all agree from that perspective, because as a couple of them have said to me, a mammalular cell is a mammalular cell. They've said if it's a mammal cell, it's a mammal cell, and that's why it's going to react the way it does. I'm excited about the fact that I'm able to feed something to my animals that allows them to be in control of their own health. It's something they can't be allergic to. It's something they can't you can't overdose on it, because your body can only produce so much NRF2. And so the reality is that it's going to produce exactly what your body needs and what your body can use, and nothing else. Versus people, especially on the human side, we probably all know that person that takes 10,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day, or vitamin B, or whatever it is that they choose to overdose on. And what they don't realize is, quite honestly, they just pee it out. Your body can only process so much of it as possible. The rest of it's going to end up in your endocrine system, and it's going to be out. And so it's a waste of your time and your money. Um, and the bottom line is that it can only attack so much of the damage that oxidative stress causes, and it's important. And so, we've been told all our lives to consume antioxidants, and the reason we've been told that is because antioxidants is what addresses free radical damage, or what we now call oxidative stress. Sadly, it only addresses it on a one-to-one basis, whereas protandim does it on a 1 to 1 million basis, and that's the big difference. So if you really want to make a difference, you want to feed protandim or pet tandem to your dogs, one of the two. I know a lot of people who feed protandim to their dogs versus pet tandem because of the size of their dogs. They have huge dogs, 100-pound dogs, mastiffs, bull mastiffs, dogs of that nature, and they'll feed a half a pill of protandim to that dog instead of feeding it. From a dosage standpoint, quite honestly, I mean, the pet tandem, it lists dogs by weight. It's doing that just to find some common ground that people can understand. But in reality, I learned from Joe in working on a study we were involved in an animal study, that dosage is not really based on weight. It's based on surface area of the body. And that's why he says a standard horse is 2 protandim a day. A young horse, a young filly or a colt or a pony is 1 a day till it reaches maturity, and then it needs 2 a day. They can be fed together. They can be fed morning and night, whatever the person wants to do. It doesn't make a difference. But the reality is dosage is based on surface area of the body and not on weight. Big dogs would require 4 to 5 pet tandem a day, and let's be honest, that's a bit on the cost prohibitive side. Whereas a big dog like that can survive on half a pill of protandem a day and do just fine. And so it keeps the cost down. Doesn't taste quite as good. It's not chicken and liver flavored like pet tandem is, but it does work. And once the animal gets used to taking it, it's not much of an issue. Most all of my horses, I just throw the Protandim in with their feed every day, because all of mine get a scoop of pelleted feed. They get Equine Senior. It's more for entertainment than anything. But the cool part about the Equine Senior is it has fat in it. And Protandim is metabolized in the liver, not in the kidneys. In order for it to get metabolized in the liver, it has to be consumed with food, preferably food with fat. And so I feel very comfortable with feeding that to my horses with my Equine Senior. If I get a horse that won't eat it and spits it out because they don't like that pungent taste of the turmeric, I'll put it in a little coffee grinder. I've got one of those little $12 Hamilton Beach coffee grinder from Walmart. I'll grind it up in that, throw it in their feed, mix it up. Their desire to eat the feed is much stronger than their desire to avoid the taste. And after you do that every day for about 2 weeks, you can just throw the pills in and they'll eat them. They won't care. I've had to do that several times, and it's worked perfectly for me every time. So let's see. My friend's rig, I'm going to say that means supposed to mean dog, is having liver problems. Okay, Liz, Protandim cleans and detoxifies the liver. And so I would tell you that if they're having liver problems, I would highly suggest, at the very least, Protandim, if not, or Pet Tandem, if not Protandim, if they're having a liver problem. I've had people ask me about, especially with horses, there's a lot of horses out there with liver problems because they've been fed bute so much of their lives because of injuries and arthritis and everything else. And bute causes butazolidin, what we call bute, causes significant liver damage. Well, that 37-year-old gelding I've got out there has been on a gram of bute every day for about 8 or 9 years right now, which under normal circumstances would be unheard of in equine veterinary circles. But because of the fact that he's on Protandim and he gets his liver checked twice a year, my vet tells me his liver numbers are absolutely perfect. So that gives me confidence. I can't prove that Protandem's doing that. I mean, I know that from Dr. McCord's teaching, but But what I know is that my horse is on bute, it's on Protandim, and its liver numbers are perfect. And in the normal environment with straight bute, that wouldn't be that way. So I have every confidence in the world that's why his liver numbers are normal, is because of the Protandim. And so for the dog, I would say definitely, if it's an acute problem, don't, I mean, just my personal advice, I'll tell you what, I can only tell you what I would do. I can't tell you what to do. I can't tell anybody what to do. I can only tell you what I'd do if it was my dog. If it was my dog, I'd be feeding it Protandim, um, because it's a stronger formula overall. It's not formulated for dogs, but it is a stronger formula. And in my opinion, when you have the acute problem, it's worth going after the acute problem for a while and then backing off and into a normal environment. Even horses are that way. I've run into some people that have had really acute problems with a horse, and they've wanted to know if should they feed more than 2 Protandim a day. And I'm like, listen, you can't hurt them. You can only help them. You got nothing to lose. So feed them 3 a day, feed them 4 a day, feed 2 in the morning, feed 2 at the night, but only do it for like 30 days, and you should be okay. Um, Questions coming up about horses competing that might be tested. I get this question all the time, and I'll give you the same answer I give everyone, and that is, if you're competing in an environment where it's potential to be tested, whatever association you are competing in, check their rules to see if any of the 5 ingredients within Protandim are banned by that organization. If they are, you need to be a little careful. Now, mind you, the amount of that product in their system is so small. In many cases, it's going to be undetectable. But the reality is you are taking some level of risk. The big one that people ask about is the green tea. What you have to, because almost every association bans green tea because of the caffeine that's in it, being a stimulant for the horse. We do not use a green tea as a whole in the formula. We use a chemical subset of green tea called ECGC, Edward Charles, George Charles, and I'm not aware of any association out there that has ECGC banned. And so that's why when you read the label, it says green tea extract. So it's an extract of green tea. It's not just pure green tea ground up into the formula. Um, I know lots and lots and lots of people who have horses that are competing and getting tested. And to date, I've never had one of them come back to me and tell me they've had a positive test, at any of the organizations they've been involved in. In fact, I wish we could set up some testing with these organizations, but they all want big bucks to do that. They'll start out at like $175,000, $250,000. Well, they want us to pay them, and then they'll run a study and a test and all those kinds of things. And what a lot of people do is they will train their horse on the product, and then maybe 10 days before they'll stop the product. It takes 21 days for the nerve tube building effect in the body to get to its peak. It takes 21 days for it to go away. So if you drop it, for 10 days or so, it should be out of the bloodstream at that stage of the game, but you still should have some positive benefit to your horse. That's my opinion. But I tell people, check with their associations, see if Protandem's listed on their banned substances list, see if any of the 5 ingredients are on their banned substances list. It's just an activator. That's all we are. We're not a supplement. We're not a drug. We're not something that hangs around in the body a really long time. We reach into the body and we flip this switch inside the genome that says, hey, produce NRF2, which is a natural function of a mammal, is to produce NRF2. So what are they going to test for? Are they going to test for NRF2 activation? What does that mean? I don't even think I'd be shocked if any of the testing organizations even knew what the term meant. But like I said, I've been at this now 11 and a half years. I get this question all the time, especially from racehorse people and from people in the hunter jumper circles, somewhat in the barrel racing circles, because the WPRA does do random tests at different WPRA barrel races. And I've not had one person yet come back to me and say, I was tested and tested positive. And I've told them all, if it happens, I want to know about it immediately, because I want to follow up on it and find out what's going on. Other questions?
Just brilliant, all that you've shared, Greg. I have a question. So we cannot make any claims to treat, cure, all that stuff. What age do you recommend as a baby? Like 6 months for a horse, for a dog, for a cat, for a, so they don't go down that road.
You know, I think you almost have to do a little bit of calculation. Dogs have 7 times the oxidative stress humans do. So in dogs, starting at 6 months makes sense to me. Um, Horses have roughly about double the amount of oxidative stress a human has. And so is a yearling, but I think it also depends on the life that's in lifestyle that horse is living. Is it out in the pasture just enjoying life, coming in every so often, being handled, that kind of thing? Is it an 18-month-old colt that they've already halter broke and saddle broke and then they're starting to ride it? I mean, the minute you start putting stress on an animal, you increase the amount of oxidative stress it has dramatically. And so if I had a horse that was 18 months old in training, I'd have it on Pro Tandem for 30 days before I ever sent it to training, because I would want to give it the best opportunity to have what Nerf 2 does for the body in that colt before they ever start that colt. That's what I would do with mine. I can't tell anybody else what to do with theirs. Sometimes it's a cost thing. I mean, 2 bottles a month is $80 a month plus shipping. I mean, it's 90 to $100 a month for the average horse. A lot of people can't afford that. I got 5 head of horses out here. I spend $500 a month on those horses alone. I don't even think twice about it. I'm fortunate enough I can afford it, and I, even when I couldn't afford it, quite honestly, I was doing it because it was the right thing to do for my horses. And I have people tell me all the time when they die they want to be reincarnated as one of my horses, because I treat my horses better than most people treat their kids.
Yeah.
Um, but that would be my suggestion. Is what kind of lifestyle are they leading? What kind of diet do they have? Do they have a really good diet? All of that, I think all that factor matters. I'm extremely picky what I feed my horses. Extremely picky. The quality of hay I purchase is on a scale of 1 to 10, has got to be a 9 or 9.5, or I won't buy it. I feed the exact same kind of grain, and I have for 20 years. And it's not grain; it's a pelleted feed called Purina Equine Senior. One of the reasons I love to feed Purina Equine Seniors because it's a pelleted feed, not a grain. It won't make them hot. It does have some fat in it, which helps with the protandim absorption and metabolism in the kidneys, but it's also helps them recover from stress without amping their bodies up. And it's available coast to coast. Back in the day when I used to rodeo like crazy and I was up and down the road 10,000 miles at a time, I knew I could buy Purina in Florida, or I could buy it in Minnesota, or I could buy it in Texas, or I could buy it in California, and it was going to be the exact same Purina feed that I bought when I was in Colorado at home. And so I was confident that what I was feeding my horses when I was going up and down the road was exactly what they needed and wanted, and what worked the best for them. So, I think all those factors, but the rule of thumb for me is 6 months on puppies. I would say as a yearling on a colt for sure, yearling to 2 years old for sure. If you're gonna throw a halter and a saddle on them and start putting some stress underneath them, even if you're just teaching them ground manners, give them the advantage of having some anti-inflammatory response in their body, because that's stress, and we need to help them be as de-stressed as possible.
We do indeed, and that's why we do what we do, and we love it. We love to make a change, see them just thrive. They deserve it too. Well, Greg, we
Absolutely.
can't thank you enough for your time. This is absolutely brilliant, and I'm sure it's going to go far and wide around the world. Just golden information for us all.
Well, like I say, take everything I say with a grain of salt, simply because it's my opinion about what I would do for me and for my horses. I can't tell you what to do. I can only tell you what my experience is. My experience has been very, very, very positive on all of my horses. I could sit here for an hour and tell you stories about the positive effects I believe I've seen from the product, but that's my opinion. There's no guarantee of that because there's no study behind them. But I look at it this way: you have nothing to lose and everything to gain by Nerf 2 activating your dogs and your horses. Someday we might have a feline product as well. I don't know. But you know, the reality is for dogs and horses, that's my life. And so
Thank you so much. You have a great rest of the day, and
you
we'll be
too.
talking again. And
I'm building a garage, so I'm going back to building the garage. Take
thank you.
care. Bye
Thanks
bye.
to everyone for joining us. Bye
You're
bye.
welcome. Bye bye.
Thank you.